World War, again not as a sudden accident, but as the final explosion of tensions that had been building in Europe and beyond for decades, making its outbreak in 1914 the result of deep-rooted political, military, economic, and social forces converging at one critical moment. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, Europe was dominated by powerful empires that competed aggressively for global influence, colonies, resources, and prestige. Militarism played a central role in this rivalry, as nations such as Germany, Britain, France, and Russia invested heavily in expanding their armies and navies, believing that military strength was the key to national security and international respect. Germany, newly unified in 1871, rapidly industrialized and sought its place in the sun, alarming established powers like Britain and France. An intense naval arms race developed between Germany and Britain, while continental powers expanded conscription-based armies, creating a climate where war planning became routine and generals held immense influence over political decisions. Alongside militarism, a rigid alliance system emerged, designed initially to preserve balance, but ultimately ensuring that any regional conflict could escalate into a general war. Europe became divided into two main blocs: the Triple Alliance of Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Italy, and the Triple Entente of Britain, France, and Russia. These alliances were supported by secret treaties, military agreements, and assumptions that allies would automatically support one another in the event of war, leaving little room for diplomacy once a crisis began. Nationalism further intensified tensions, especially in regions where empires ruled over diverse ethnic groups. Nowhere was this more explosive than in the Balkans, a region often described as the powder keg of Europe. The Ottoman Empire's gradual decline created a power vacuum in southeastern Europe, leading newly independent states such as Serbia, Bulgaria, and Greece to seek territorial expansion. Serbia, in particular, emerged as a strong nationalist force, promoting the idea of uniting all South Slavs into a single state. This ambition directly threatened Austria-Hungary, a multi-ethnic empire that controlled territories populated by Slavic peoples, including Bosnia and Herzegovina. Austria-Hungary feared that Serbian nationalism would inspire rebellion within its borders and ultimately tear the empire apart. Russia, positioning itself as the protector of Slavic nations and eager to expand its influence in the Balkans, supported Serbia, further complicating the regional power struggle. At the same time, imperial competition outside Europe heightened mistrust among the great powers, as disputes over colonies in Africa, Asia, and the Middle East reinforced fears that rivals were seeking dominance at others' expense. The immediate chain of events leading to World War I was triggered by the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, the heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, on June 28, 1914, in Sarajevo, the capital of Bosnia. Franz Ferdinand was visiting the province to observe military exercises, a visit perceived by many local nationalists as a provocation. Bosnia had been annexed by Austria-Hungary in 1908, angering Serbia and nationalist groups who believed the region should belong to a South Slavic state. The assassin, Gavrilo Princip, was a Bosnian Serb nationalist associated with the Black Hand, a secret organization with ties to Serbian military intelligence. When Princip shot and killed Franz Ferdinand and his wife, Sophie, the act shocked Europe but did not immediately guarantee a world war. Political assassinations were not uncommon at the time, and many leaders initially believed the crisis could be contained. However, Austria-Hungary saw the assassination as an existential threat and an opportunity to crush Serbian nationalism once and for all. Before acting, Austria-Hungary sought assurance of support from Germany, its most powerful ally. On July 5, 1914, German leaders provided what became known as the blank check, promising full diplomatic and military backing regardless of Austria-Hungary's actions against Serbia. Encouraged by this guarantee, Austria-Hungary drafted a harsh ultimatum to Serbia, deliberately designed to be unacceptable. Delivered on July 23, the ultimatum demanded, among other things, Austrian officials be allowed to participate in the investigation inside Serbia, a condition that would have violated Serbian sovereignty. Serbia, aware of its military weakness but confident of Russian support, accepted most of the demands while rejecting those that undermined its independence. Despite Serbia's conciliatory response, Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia on July 28, 1914, beginning a conflict that quickly spiraled beyond control. Russia, unwilling to abandon Serbia and eager to maintain its influence in the Balkans, began mobilizing its army against Austria-Hungary. The logic of early 20th century military planning. Civilization itself was viewed as an act of war. Germany, fearing a two-front conflict and adhering to its pre-existing war plans, responded by declaring war on Russia on August 1, 1914. 2 days later, Germany declared war on France, Russia's ally. Germany's military strategy, known as the Schlieffen Plan, required a rapid defeat of France before turning east to fight Russia, which was expected to mobilize more slowly. To execute this plan, German forces invaded neutral Belgium on August 4, 1914, seeking a quick route into northern France. This violation of Belgian neutrality triggered Britain's entry into the war, as Britain was bound by treaty to protect Belgium and also feared German domination of Western Europe. What might have remained a localized Balkan war thus transformed into a global conflict within weeks, driven by rigid alliances, inflexible military plans, and political leaders who underestimated the scale and consequences of their decisions. None of the major powers anticipated a long or devastating war. Many believed it would be over by Christmas 1914. Public enthusiasm and nationalist propaganda initially fueled popular support, as millions of soldiers marched off to battle convinced of quick victory and national glory. Yet beneath this optimism lay profound miscalculations. Diplomatic channels collapsed under the pressure of mobilization schedules, and once armies were set in motion, leaders found it nearly impossible to halt the process without appearing weak or risking strategic disadvantage. The outbreak of World War also reflected deeper structural problems within European diplomacy. The international system lacked effective mechanisms for conflict resolution, and institutions capable of preventing war were weak or non-existent. Secret alliances and military planning created an atmosphere of suspicion, while nationalism discouraged compromise. Political leaders were often constrained by public opinion, military advisors, and fear of losing prestige, making de-escalation politically risky. The assassination in Sarajevo did not cause world war by itself. Rather, it ignited a crisis in an environment already saturated with tension, fear, and rivalry. Each decision, from Germany's blank check to Austria-Hungary's ultimatum, from Russia's mobilization to Britain's declaration of war, contributed to an unstoppable chain reaction. As war declarations multiplied in early August 1914, the conflict rapidly expanded beyond Europe. Colonial empires drew in troops and resources from Africa, Asia, and the Middle East, while naval warfare spread across the world's oceans. What began as a dispute over influence in the Balkans became a truly global war, reshaping international politics and marking the violent end of the old European order. The start of World War I stands as a tragic lesson in how nationalism, militarism, alliance obligations, and diplomatic failure can combine to turn a single act of violence into a catastrophe of unprecedented scale, setting the stage for 4 years of industrialized warfare that would claim millions of lives and permanently alter the course of world history.